Before running your experiments, you're going to need to make DEP medium. There's two types of DEP medium typically used. This depends on your cell type. The sugars that you use are dependent on what sugars your cell type will metabolize. So typically with yeast, we use D-mannitol. With most mammalian cell types, we'll use a mixture of sucrose and dextrose. The amounts are dependent on what osmolarity you need. So typically for mammalian cells, we'll be working around 280 to 300 milliosmoles. So the amounts for that recipe are 8.5% sucrose and 0.3% dextrose or glucose. These will give you an osmolarity somewhere in the range of 280 to 300. This is weight percent volume, so your total volume, if you're doing 100 mils, will be a little bit less of your DI medium, and then you'll add your sugars in for a total volume of 100. So if you weigh the sucrose out to 8.5 grams, once you get about 8.5 grams, you can add that to your DI water. Then you'll measure out your glucose. The glucose you add as 0.3 grams, so that's 0.3% of a 100 ml solution. You'll mix all of this into the DI water. You can use a stirrer, you can manually stir it, or if you've got a nice bottle, you can just shake it. And this should all dilute fairly quickly. Once the solution's dilute, you're going to want to measure the conductivity. And we'll need to adjust the conductivity to a starting point of about 10 millisiemens. Again, this is dependent on your cell type. A good starting point, if you've never done a cell type before, is 10 millisiemens per meter. Most conductivity meters measure in microsiemens per centimeter, so this will be 100 microsiemens per centimeter on the meters. This mixture will measure fairly low, somewhere between 5 to 10 microsiemens per centimeter. And what you'll use to adjust the conductivity, typically we use PBS. Now this is PBS without calcium or magnesium. And you'll add little bits at a time of PBS to adjust the conductivity. Depending on your total volume, so in this case we're using 100 milliliters, will depend on how much PBS you add at a time. So in this case we're adding 75 microliters at a time. And you'll just mix it up and remeasure. So even with this small amount, we went from 6 to 27 microsiemens. While this is a slow process, it's better to do it in small steps of the PBS than to do it too high steps and end up going past the conductivity that you need. Okay. And you'll see after 4 additions of these 75 microliters, we're at about 93 microsiemens per centimeter. So I'll add just a bit more. And now we're at 99.4. So that's close enough to 10. The amount that you add will vary from day to day. It depends on whatever the room temperature is. It depends on how accurately you measured your sugars. So don't be concerned if you don't get the exact same number every time, or you're not adding the exact same amount of PBS every time. Just go for the conductivity that you need. At this point, if you need sterile media, what you'll need to do is if you're mixing your media in a nice glass bottle like this, you can autoclave the mixture, and then you'll want to leave it to sit so that it reaches room temperature. Or you can sterile filter.